Today we're going to be taking a look at 75444 ATRD Attack. This set will be releasing just a few days from now on April 26th with 297 pieces and an atrocious retail price of $45 US. Yes, it looks like the 327th battle pack from last year. It has a new competitor for being one of the worst priced sets of all time. However, contrary to the battle pack, in this set for $45 you only get 3 minifigures, or I guess technically 2.5 if you want to count Grogu. On the bright side though, of course the box art looks really nice, and I mean this is nothing new. I'm pretty sure I've said this for every Mandalorian set I've reviewed so far this year, but I just think it looks really good. It's bright and it really pops, and I love the metallic blue. It's definitely one of my favorite box arts that LEGO has ever made before, and I especially love this bit on the side right here that shows the Mandalorian bending over to Grogu and then the logo for the movie underneath. I just think it looks really good. The back box art also looks beautiful. You're gonna have the mountains with this nice sort of pink sunset in the background, which I think looks amazing. All of the blue and white and sort of pinkish colors are all working together so perfectly here, and it just looks really nice. However, unfortunately, good box art is not going to save this set from its price point or from me complaining about its price point. So opening up the box and digging in, on the inside you're going to find just 4 numbered bags along with these 2 loose pieces that belong to the turret. You're also going to find a sticker sheet with 8 stickers on it, and then 2 instruction manuals, which I think is kind of unnecessary, but one is for the ATRT and the other is for the turret. Moving on to the 3 minifigures included in this set, we'll start off with the one you guys want to see most, being the Imperial Remnant ATRT driver, and this actually is a really beautiful looking fig. It's as simple as that. I love how they brought back the Shore Trooper / hover tank pilot helmet mold, and then the white and light gray printing looks incredible on both the front and the back. And then if you're wondering, this is what his face print looks like underneath his helmet. Now this figure does have a printed waist cape, which obviously is not ideal. I'm obviously going to prefer a physical one. However, if you look closely, it actually does blend in pretty nicely with the rest of the figure, and unlike on the clone troopers, it actually doesn't stick out like a sore thumb. So while it's definitely not ideal, it is tolerable. And then lastly, here it is next to the Rogue One hover tank pilot from 2016, and much to my surprise, these two figures actually are quite a bit different from each other. From the helmet prints to the actual visor shape, and then of course to the torso and leg prints, they actually are a lot different than I was expecting them to be. Literally the only identical thing about them is just the helmet mold by itself. Everything else is different. Next up here we have the Mandalorian, and this actually is technically a new version of him. If you compare him to the last version, his leg print is actually different with the addition of foot printing, but other than the legs, the rest of the figure is actually exactly the same torso, same arms. I guess the jetpack is a new addition, but then underneath the jetpack it's the same back print. So yeah, everything about this figure is exactly the same as what we've seen before, except for the legs, which I guess technically makes it a new version. And then lastly here we have the new Grogu mold, which looks incredible. At the end of the day, this figure alone definitely isn't anything crazy, but it is definitely a significant and much needed upgrade when you compare it to the older one. And I think a lot of people are probably going to be excited to get their hands on this. But overall, the 3 figures included in this set on their own are fine. I mean, I really don't have anything negative to say about them, except for the ATRT driver ideally needing a physical comma, but his printed one doesn't look that bad at all. However, for $45, this figure lineup is just not enough. It feels incomplete for that price, and I think a second or maybe even a third ATRT driver would have worked wonders and gone a long way, but no, instead we just get these 3 figs, or I guess technically 2.5. Taking a look at the 2 builds here, in person, they actually look a lot better than I was expecting them to, especially the ATRT here. They actually did a surprisingly good job on it. It looks a lot better in person than it does in the product images, in my opinion at least. They captured the sort of slouch forward stance of the ATRT really well here, and then on top of that, both the legs and the feet are very detailed at such a small scale, which is pretty impressive. From the hip connectors at the top all the way down to the bottom, they did an amazing job. There's going to be some stickers right here on the front, adding some pretty good detail actually. They are slightly discolored from the color of the pieces, however it's actually not that bad, especially compared to other sets, which I was surprised to see. And then on the back here, you're going to have these angled cylinder pieces, which kind of look like a car engine sitting on the back here. I honestly have no idea what these are supposed to represent, but at the very least, they do look pretty cool. And then of course, you can grab the Mandalorian and sit him down in the driver's seat, and then there's also a little stud right here that can hold Grogu as well. And then on the back, you're going to find a clip that can hold his blaster. The one thing I don't like about this build though are the stud shooters on the front. I think the design style they went with is just kind of ridiculous how they stick out like this. They are on a ball joint, so they do have a pretty big range of motion, which is nice, but they just look kind of stupid. And I think they could have just used a better design, kind of like the ATRT from 2019 if you know what I'm talking about. But besides the stud shooters on the front, this ATRT build looks really nice. It honestly surprised me. Is it $45 nice? No, not even close, but for what it is, I'm genuinely impressed. I unfortunately can't really say the same thing about the turret though. It just looks kind of off to me. It's clearly very reminiscent and designed after one of those Hoth turrets. However, the difference is that this one doesn't have that sort of dome piece on the top, so it just looks kind of awkward to me. And I mean, the reason it doesn't have that piece on top is because the ATRT driver is supposed to sit up here, which definitely does make it look better, but it's still not quite right to me. I honestly can't put my finger on on it, but the whole build just looks kind of awkward. But as for its functionalities, the cannon can aim up and down, which is pretty nice. And then as you might have noticed, the whole top portion can spin, and it actually spins pretty freely as you can see here. There's like no friction on it at all. And then on the sides here, you're going to find some more stickers adding some detail, and unlike the ATRT, the discoloration of these isn't very noticeable, so that's nice. And then at the bottom here, probably the best part of the build is the snowy rock work. It's very simple, but it's surprisingly detailed at a small scale, and I just think it looks really nice. I always like to see rock work in LEGO form. And then lastly for this build, the whole thing can actually open up, revealing what almost looks like a generator on the inside that kind of runs up through the middle. I'm not sure if that's what LEGO intended for this to be, but if it is, that's a really awesome detail. And then at the bottom here, there's a little container that when you open reveals a printed control panel that you can slide out. And the reason that's in there is actually pretty interesting. If you take the ATRT here and then remove both the Mandalorian and Grogu, you can sit the Remnant ATRT driver on here, and the control panel actually goes in the same spot where Grogu was sitting. And I just think that's a pretty fun way to be able to kind of switch out if you want the Mandalorian or the ATRT driver driving it. Overall, the actual material in this set, besides the turret maybe, actually surprised me quite a bit. The figures and the ATRT look great. They genuinely look a lot better than I was expecting them to, but the set is just obviously not worth $45. I mean, I think I'd probably give it $30 at most. And it's really disappointing because it seems like that extra $15 just seemingly comes out of nowhere. And for $45, it genuinely seems like this set is incomplete. It needs an extra build, it needs extra figures, it just needs a lot more for that price, which we don't get. And the reality of it is, it's literally just as bad, if not worse, than the 327th Battle Pack from last year, hence the title of the video. So if I were you, I would definitely not pay more than $30 for this because it's just not worth it at $45. And when it comes to rating this set, I think I'm feeling a solid 5. If it were $15 cheaper at $30, I'd probably give it a 7 or 7.5, but right now I'm giving it a 5 because $45 is just ridiculous. So let me know what you guys think about this set down in the comments below. If you're new, please consider subscribing, and if you want to check out more of my videos, you can see the link on the screen right now.